All right, so now we're recording, so everyone be careful what you say. Who you talk about, name dropping. But anyways, thanks again for this Friday. I can't believe it's already mid-September. We only have 2 more GRCs after this for the year. The next ones, Stancog will be here to talk about kind of Measure L updates. Rosa Park will be here. And but first of all, we want to do some introductions. And so we'll go around the room and then we'll do introductions on Zoom. And I will start with our speaker, Stu, on my left.
Hi, everybody. Stu Gilman, local business owner, business broker, and MID director for Division 4.
Good afternoon, Dana Ferrer, regulatory analyst, Modesto Irrigation District.
I'm John Valines, GRC chairman, and worked for the Modesto Gospel Mission.
I'm Sabrina Gonzalez Fuel. I'm membership coordinator here at the chamber.
Michael Gaffney, gas and electric operations with PG&E and chairman of the board of the chamber.
And Tricia, the president and CEO of the Modesto Chamber of Commerce.
So go ahead now on Zoom, Jenny.
Jenny Canoia, Modesto City Council, District 5.
Thanks for being here, Jenny. Keenan.
Hi, Keenan Crick, Second Harvest of the Greater Valley.
Thanks for being here, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa Mantero Moore with Assembly Member Adam Gray's office.
All right. Vice Mayor, looks like he's not in a seat. So John.
Hi, John Beckman with Building Industry Association.
All right,
That's it.
and I think that's it. Thank you. So first order of business is to approve the minutes from last meeting where we talked about the general plan of Modesto. Do I have a motion?
I move.
Dana moves. Do I have a second?
I'll second, Michael.
All right, Michael, thank you. All right, and so now for special reports, Lisa, go ahead.
I don't have too much more to report than yesterday. Assembly Member Gray stood with Merced College on the opening of the new Ag Tech Center, which he received matching funding from the state of California in addition to local generous donor, and as a little bonus, they did name the conference room after Adam Gray, so it was kind of fun. Kind of mix it up a little bit. And his small business of the year last month was nonprofit of the year, which was the Carlos Fierra Foundation for Autism, and this year's small business of the year was the Elegant Bowl located in Delhi. And aside from that, it's going to every event in town. So.
All right, thank you. Yeah. Is David back at his? Nope. Okay, well, we'll skip David for now. And I don't think anyone else is here. All right, no one else is here.
Bree wasn't able to be here, but she did send a report that can be sent after the committee.
Okay, so we'll send out a report from Josh Harder to the committee after the meeting. And then, okay. So I guess, Stu, without further ado, you are. Oh, I'm sorry. Does MID have a report, Dana?
Yes.
Okay.
MID does have a report.
Sorry.
So as many of you are aware, if you were in town at all last week, we had a heat event, and thankfully MID nor the state had any rolling blackouts. And I just want to give a public thank you to all of the MID employees for the long hours and work they did so we could continue to provide reliable electric and water service. It was hot. Not much more to say than that. It was hot, and it was a stress on the entire state's electrical system, and very proud of our workers. It was it was a long week. And in addition, MID received the California Association of Public Information Officials Excellent in Public Information Communications Best in Show Award for Until the Last Drop feature documentary. So that's just the last award that documentary has received. It also received the Association of California Water Agencies, we'll call it Best in Show. I can't remember the name for the award, but their big award at their annual conference. So a big shout out to our public relations team of Sam and Melissa, and then again to all the MID employees and the board for approving that documentary to be made. It's informational. If you haven't had a chance to view it, I recommend it. And that would be my report, John.
All right, thank you, Dana. So I guess I should give PG&E equal time. Michael, do you want to report on anything?
I'll just say that Dana summarized the heat event quite well. We escaped another one. If you remember, the last time Cal ISO ordered us to initiate rotating brownouts, if you will, was in 2020, August of 2020. Before that was 2001 during the California energy crisis. So I don't think that the weather is going to stop getting hotter and hotter every year. We need to really take a hard look at how we can better control our grid, have control measures put in place. But PG&E did do what I would call rotating and proactive led load shedding, I guess I would call
Yeah.
it. Where we were giving our substations and other pieces of equipment a break before it got too hot, before it would have had bigger issues on the grid. So we did take some customers out, but that was on purpose, and we did some switching to pick them back up. So yeah, that was that event. Other than that, just continues to be fire season until first rain, or at least a heavy first rain. It looks like we have some rain in the forecast later through the weekend into next week, which is a positive thing. For much of the state, not as positive for farmers who have nuts on the ground, but they're watching that closely as well. So, yeah, it's hard.
Fun fact, when we were hitting 112, 113 last week, my daughter was seeing the same temps in Henderson, Nevada. We were actually in alignment with Las Vegas.
Yeah,
Yeah, you could have stayed with Phoenix, and actually it was cooler in Phoenix than it was. So.
Crazy. Council member Ricky joined us.
Oh. Hey, Chris, would you like to introduce yourself? And
Yeah, hi, thanks for having me. Sorry I'm a couple minutes late, but I'm Chris Ricky. I'm the council member representing Modesto's District 3.
all right, do you have anything you'd like to report from the city council?
Yeah, I do. I'm really, this kind of affects MID, so it's kind of cool. One of the things that we passed this week in our economic development meeting was we're expanding our turf replacement program, which encourages people to replace their water intense landscaping with drought resistant, either artificial turf or low water landscaping. City of Modesto will give you up to $3,000 in reimbursements of your materials if you enroll in the program. So it's pretty awesome. We had a very successful year with the turf program last year. We're nearly doubling the reimbursement budget this year, which is especially important, I think, with the drought conditions that we're experiencing. We've already saved 400 million gallons of water, which sounds like a lot, but we need to save a lot more than that. So I'm just excited about the progress we're making there. Let's see, and I think there was one other thing I wanted to report on. We are also, I think this is good for Chamber of Commerce. We're working on a new ordinance that is going to help prevent car dealerships and repair shops from parking their overflow vehicles in neighborhoods. We had a real issue with some dealers on McHenry parking their inventory in like the Gear Court neighborhood and on Helen across from McHenry. And it was really horrible for about a year. We got them to stop finally, but if we had an ordinance in place, we could have stopped them immediately. So I've been pushing to get that ordinance done. I think it's going to happen in the next, I don't know, probably month or two. And then finally, we also voted this week at City Council to give the Parks Director the ability to change park hours. And this is really important in some of our parks like Grisada and Enslin and Pikes Park and some of the, and even Tripp that are having real issues with crime, vagrancy, drug use, drug dealing, prostitution. Just like there's just a myriad of issues that are happening in these parks at night. And so by giving the Parks Director the ability to change the hours, that gives law enforcement more tools to use in trying to reduce those issues. So that's my report.
Great, thank you. Is David Wright, have you returned to your seat? I can't see his picture yet.
Nope.
Nope, okay. All right. Without further ado then, Stu, go ahead.
Do for you. All right. Thanks, everybody. All right, can I be seen? Am I in the right place for Zoom?
Let me check.
Moving on to just a single box. Wait, see who's just trying.
Somebody just came down here.
Donna Linder.
Donna, would you like to introduce yourself? We saw you just joined.
There you go, Stu. How's that? Okay, you're all good to go.
Donna, can you hear us? Would you like to join and introduce yourself?
Nope.
Guess what?
All right.
She doesn't have her mic on yet, John, if you can see that.
Okay, yeah. All right, we'll come back, Donna, to you and get a report from you as well. Go ahead, Stu.
Okay, so you could, just gonna do a not so brief overview of MID. Some of you may have seen much of this before, or our illustrious government affairs gal over here may have shared a number of things over the years as well. If you could go to the next slide for me. Okay, so MID, as you can see here, we were established in 1887, about 2 weeks behind TID, our sister agency on the Tuolumne River. And as many of you know, that actually what is surprising, as I've talked to a number of customers, that they don't realize that if you're a ratepayer in MID, you're actually an owner. All right, now it's very small, okay, but payers are essentially owners because we are a publicly owned utility. So just kind of an interesting fact there. Governed by elected board of directors, of which I'm pleased to serve as one of the 5. 130,000 plus customers, 2,300 agriculture accounts and 60,000 acres. We also, I believe, bring about half of the water to the city of Modesto, and which is pretty spectacular and has done a lot for reducing, you know, the need to recharge the aquifer quite as frequently, because before the city was pumping with all wells, and now you get about half of your water from the Tuolumne River treated at the Modesto water treatment plant. So next slide. All right, communities we serve, there's a number of them. One is it's sort of a surprise, and that's Mountain House. So that's, a lot of people say, what in the world are you doing at Mountain House, right? Well, that was an opportunity that came up when Mountain House was first being built, and we bid on it, as I believe that's true, right, Dana? And so we actually got the Mountain House contract and built an entirely new infrastructure out there. So that's initially when we had the crash in 08, 09, it was a tough one to support out there because there just wasn't a lot of building anymore. Everything stopped. So the projections just didn't go where we thought they were going to, but that's certainly recovered. We're doing very well out there, but we serve obviously Modesto, Waterford, Salida, parts of Ripon, and there are parts of Ripon and Escalon, Oakdale and Riverbank that they wish that they had MID out there for all the obvious reasons, but I will be very careful because we have a PGD employee. So, Let me see, power mix. Well, first of all, I don't know if any of you ever seen a drawing like this before, but we use a variety of different sources for power. We generate our own power with jet engines, like out on Woodland. In fact, we're just beginning a replacement of a large jet engine out there on Woodland, because the one that we had for our power plant there was old and we couldn't get parts anymore for it, not reliably anyway. So it's a $40 million project that we're undergoing right now. And just kind of an interesting thing, we actually hired a gentleman by the name of Greg Sawyer, who used to be a general manager at MID, to come back and run that project for us, because he was the original person that installed the engine that's being replaced. So that's just kind of, I like to throw in these little factoids and make it a little right. So we're grateful to have Greg come back and do this replacement. We also have at Don Pedro, we get about 7% of our power portfolio from the dam. And let me see, I'll tell you here. So the electric current that's produced is sent to transformers to increase voltage to push the power over long distances. And also this charge goes through high voltage transmission lines that stretch across many miles. And once it reaches the substation, the voltage is lowered so it can be sent on to smaller power lines to people's homes, these 12 kV lines. If we could go to, let me see, our power mix relies on diverse balanced power resource mix, which, as I mentioned before, we generate our own power, quite a bit of it, in fact, and also other sources as we partner with other utilities and companies to be able to pull power in off the grid. And we have long-term contracts in the energy marketplace for solar and wind as well. Benefits of public power. Well, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, because it's a public power utility, it's owned by the people that we serve. And it allows for unique benefits such as local control, low rates, and high reliability. One of the things that has been really great to see as a director is how the people who are elected in the various divisions are able to help their customers directly. So a customer can reach out to a director and say, hey, I need help with such and such, whether it's something to do with ag, water, or power. And I've had the chance to be able, in this role, to be able to help customers directly, where if it was a regular investor-owned utility, that would be much more difficult, right? And so I can help get to customer service much more quickly than investor-owned. So also, since the public power utilities are community-owned, rates are set locally by the board of directors in open public meetings. So, and some of you may have attended these sorts of meetings in the past, where you actually can come and argue in favor or against whatever is happening at a public board meeting. Not just setting rates, but anything that's going to affect the customer. It's really important that I like to encourage people to come to the meetings as often as possible, because that's where you find out how the sausage is made, so to speak. Okay, on average, nationally, electric rates of public power utilities are lower than those of other utilities. That's because local, not-for-profit utilities have the power to put their neighbors first. Let's go to the next slide. Current challenges. Well, we just talked about the heat wave, which I think we came through very nicely, and it sounds like PG&E did as well. So I'm pleased for you guys and your customers. That's a big deal. Other challenges: rising costs, the renewable energy portfolio requirements, and also developing an infrastructure for electric vehicles. So I'm going to chat a little bit about some of those things. Since we just talked about the heat wave, I won't say too much about that. But prior to this heat wave, the highest peak power demand we ever had was 702 megawatts. Last week, we had 3 consecutive days that actually exceeded that. We set a new record peak of 760 megawatts on Tuesday, the 6th, followed by 713 on Wednesday and 727 on Thursday, followed by a dip to 691 megawatts on Friday. There were a few power outages here and there, but it wasn't anything to do with any rolling blackouts. There was none of that. And based on what Michael said, PG&E had none as well, right? So it was good for all the residents of California to weather that the way we did. Approximately 2/3 of our budget is happens to be power supply costs. All right, so, and a lot of it for us is natural gas. So I'll chat a little bit more about that in a second. So one of the things that we just finished much of our budget workshops this week. And so staff worked really hard to try and find ways to cut costs wherever possible. There are a lot of upward pressures on the budget right now, mostly having to do with the cost to generate and the fuels that that produce that electricity. So inflation has impacted many aspects of our lives. That's not telling all of you here anything new. And certainly MID is not immune to some of the same things that are affecting consumers. So once again, since 2/3 of our overall budget is power supply, there's rising costs there. As a matter of fact, one of the things we just heard was just the increase this year in natural gas costs are about $58 million for MID just this year. And that's just the increase. That's not the total spend. That's the increase. So that's definitely a big deal. Electric vehicles are, one more thing about the renewable energy costs and things that are going on with renewables. California is dictating, much to my chagrin and a lot of others, that we move towards reducing our dependence on fossil fuels, as many of you know. And that includes even what has been referred to as clean natural gas in many ways. Certainly not the same thing as relying on coal, right? But still fossil fuels are nasty words these days in California, unfortunately. And so our energy targets set by the state say that MID has to reach 44% renewable energy by the end of 2024, 52% by the end of 2027, and 60% by the end of 2030. So it just keeps going up and up and up. And I don't know what the requirements are for you guys at PG&E. Is it similar? Same, right? It's statewide.
Like 2045, I think.
Mhm. And so renewable energy, while we understand includes hydropower, wind, and solar, the state does not permit us to count our hydro in our renewable portfolio at this point, which, if I can editorialize, I think that's the dumbest thing you can imagine. And just goes to show my opinion that the renewable targets are much more political than they are anything else, right? So, but that's the land in which we live.
And I'll just add to that, Senator Caballero carried a bill for MID and TID to allow Don Pedro's generation renewal, the generation from Don Pedro to count towards our renewables. And it was surprising to me because it's such a small percentage how across the state we got a lot of backlash and that it was gonna blow up the renewable system, and solar didn't like it, and it was a little shocking. So unfortunately that bill died in committee, but there's no reason for it not to be counted, but it's the state.
Hey, Stu and Dana, I have an add-on question there with the solar mandates on new residential construction. My understanding is that solar on rooftops and residential, you can't count that as part of your renewable portfolio also. Is that correct?
I'm not aware of that, John. That doesn't mean what you're saying isn't true. I'm just not aware of that. Now, keep in mind, in my estimation anyway, there's a difference between counting, you know, the number of customers that rely on solar versus us generating power from renewable sources.
So that's probably just not considered part of your portfolio of generation then, if it's on a rooftop from one of your customers.
You know, something, Dana, is that something we can get back to?
I don't think it is, but I'm gonna double check for you, John, and I'll email you.
Thank you.
Great question, though. I haven't been asked that one before. All right, let's talk about electric vehicles for a second. We've got a lot of people who are going to EVs. I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. Am I allowed to editorialize while I'm here, or just?
We always do.
Yes.
All right, so I like to do that. So a few months ago, I was just sharing this with Trish and some others in a prior meeting. I was in Nashville with Director Blum, and we were at the American Public Power Association meeting, which was a spectacular conference out there. Public utility representatives gathered from all over the country. And I went to a program that was specifically geared towards helping utilities prepare for and discuss the infrastructure requirements that are going to be needed for this influx of electric vehicles. A lot of times, the programs that I've attended or articles I've read about tend to look at electric vehicles as unicorns and rainbows, so to speak. Not that I'm necessarily against electric vehicles, but I don't think we have a very balanced approach to electric vehicle utilization and promotion. And one of the reasons for that is battery technology being what it is today, and where those sources are. Many of you may have heard that we get lithium and a lot of the other components that make up the batteries for electric vehicles from places like China, Africa, and there's apparently going to be some new things in Nevada, I believe, as well. And the challenge is those tend to be done with open pit mines with slave labor. All right. And so if you ever just Google, if you will, you know, lithium mines and take a look at what it takes to produce electric vehicle batteries, right? It's a big deal and it destroys the environment. So when I was at this APPA meeting, after they got done doing the, you know, windmills and unicorns and rainbows, talking about electric vehicles, I stood up and I asked a question that was from the frame of reference that all of us in this room at the conference, chances are we're very much environmentally conscious. We may not be environmentalists, but we're environmentally conscious. And given that that's the case, if you go and you study how battery technology has developed and how we get the components for batteries, basically what it's saying is that I care about the environment, but only the environment in my backyard. If it's over in Africa or China and we don't care about the people over there or the environment over there, then we're still okay, because we should still do it. I think the other thing that is going to be a challenge for consumers, as well as utilities like ours or PG&E, anybody, is developing an infrastructure that's going to be adequate for the increase in numbers of people that are buying these things. So if you can afford to buy it, then you've got the challenge of how long does it take to recharge it? If you're on a longer trip and you're sort of near the end of the battery life for that trip, you've got to find a place to go to charge. And then I think most of us can fill up our gas tank, what, in 5 minutes? Possibly, or 5 minutes or less, right? How long does it take to drive to recharge a battery?
It's like 30 or 45 minutes.
40
Right.
to like, what's it?
Yeah,
Yeah, have you ever seen any of the lines at some of these places where you can charge? And you've got a long line, only so many places to actually do your charge, right? And then if it's even 20 minutes per car, I mean, it's not like zipping in and out of Costco, right? It just isn't like that. So I think there's a lot of other considerations that are not being taken care of, not the least of which we're gonna discontinue the sale of new gasoline vehicles in 2035, I believe, and you'll only be able to buy electric vehicles. But by the way, don't plug them in. Right? Because wasn't that the message last week?
During peak hours.
During peak hours, right? So that's kind of a big deal. Now, MID does have a program, a special rate program that is time of use. And right now, it's still in a pilot phase where any home that has an electric vehicle residing there, then they can sign up for our time of use rate, which allows people to be able to get discounts on power, on electricity rates at off-peak times. And I know SMUD does that. You guys do that too,
We've got
don't you?
limited time of use for EV.
Right, and is it just for EV only with?
No,
EV?
there's 3 plans.
There's 3 different plans, okay. And it's certainly something that I'm hoping we can flip from the pilot program to all customers. So that's still being studied by staff right now. But I'm a big fan of time of use so that you can run your dishwasher, your washing machine, whatever you can in off-peak hours, and so therefore spend less per power
Yeah.
at that point. So what else can I say here?
So Stu, while you're talking about electric vehicles, I have a burning question about your requirement to switch over to renewable energy at the same time that we're requiring everybody to get rid of their gas vehicles and switch to electric. How are you going to meet the demand for all the new electricity from all the new electric vehicles?
Great question. That's one of the challenges, John, of having not just our utility, but utilities all over the state are going to be faced with the same thing. Because our current infrastructure doesn't allow for it right now. We're going to have to, I would say, probably buy more off the grid than we're able to generate now to be able to handle it. And, you know, the hope is as technologies change, you know, you think about the incandescent light bulbs that we had for so many years, and now we have LED, and that's reduced some of the load. But then at the same time that we reduced load for because of LEDs, we've got way more, you know, way more items within the home that have to be charged, right? We've got iPads, iPhones, right? And so many, we got all these different laptops. We've got a lot of things that have increased the load. So I don't know what, you know, how that actually levels out between the two. Michael, I don't know if you've ever at PG&E has looked at that or not.
Yeah, we get this question a lot, and you know, just as we've been working to decommission Diablo Canyon, which supplies about 11% of our renewable energy, the state asked us to shut it down. Now they're coming to us, begging us to keep it open and paying us to keep it open. So I'm not sure about how realistic these goals are. I think they're very, very aggressive because they're backtracking on them. So.
They're backtracking on them, and then you also have the California Air Resource Board requiring that companies of a certain size go to electric fleets and not accounting for mutual aid. So let's say up in Placer County right now, you know, are they shut? They may still have electricity, I don't know the course, but over certain wildfires, they've lost electricity, and numerous agencies will go supply mutual aid to whomever is supplying power to that county or city that's out, like Paradise when it burned down. And they want our vehicles to be electric. Where are we supposed to charge vehicles when we're there for 2-3 weeks helping restore energy? They want us to charge our vehicles with what? The infrastructure isn't there. Very ambitious goals. And as Michael mentioned, they're having to backtrack. So it is going to be interesting to see how the state responds in the future years, because just like this heat wave, it was don't charge your electric vehicles during peak hours. And oh, by the way, you can use backup generators running on gas. So California is
mess.
putting themselves into a hole.
Did any of you happen to see the picture of a bunch of people pushing an electric vehicle? That kind of broke the internet last week. There was literally a bunch of people trying to help a person whose battery ran out of charge, right? So it's not like AAA, right? Well, maybe AAA will just bring a portable generator. That's probably what's gonna have to happen, right? So.
What's interesting, if I can jump in here, is there's an app that you can get on your phone to track the status of the grid. It's called ISO today. It's by the California Independent System Operator, Cal ISO. And you can look at the grid status right now, it's normal. 61% of the grid is being served by renewables right now. What makes up for that 62% is 82.6% solar. That number will drop down to like 7% renewables tonight. When the sun goes down, the solar panels are not generating any more power, and you're left with renewables that can't supply enough power to be sustainable. So that's going to be a real issue.
ISO today.
I think today.
A lot of people ask me about, gee, should I get solar for my home? And it's not that I want to necessarily weigh in on that one way or the other. But the first thing I always say to them, are you in your lifetime home? Right? Because it's gonna take a long time to pay back the equipment costs, right? So you may have a lower bill, but you still have equipment costs either through lease or financing, right? Very few people are gonna be able to afford to write a $25,000 check to put panels on, right? So, anyway, MID is currently in the early stages of developing a plan and strategy for the deployment, installation, construction of an infrastructure to support electric vehicle charging stations. You know, and I imagine we would work with the city on that. You know, our city council folks that are on today, I don't know, if there's anything you want to weigh in on about that from a city standpoint? If you're aware of anything that the city's doing.
I do know that we are working with the state to get some grants for charging stations. And that's something that's in process, but it's kind of a long-term thing. It's not imminent. So I think it's something we'll probably see movement in the next 5 years, maybe.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot more that needs to be done there. And how that's gonna work, are they gonna be fast chargers or the slower ones, right? Not everybody has an employer that has charging stations. I don't know if the city, Chris, if you're aware, if the city has charging stations for employees or not. But those kinds of things were always a good start, I think.
Yeah, we're working on it, but again, it's like there's a lot of uncertainty right now. The technology is advancing pretty quickly. So if we had put these charging stations in 5 years ago, we'd be probably using a trickle charge. If you do it, install it now, you'd probably be using a rapid charge. And I bet you in 2 or 3 years, the definition of a rapid charge is also going to change, where you could probably charge it in half the time, right? So there's just a lot of change going on in the technology, and it's pretty hard to keep up, as you know.
Well, depending on what kind of electric vehicle you have, Teslas have their own, right?
Right.
Their own charging cable and connection versus all the others, right? So, I mean, it's kind of like, you know, back in the day, we had different kinds of VHS, right? Betamax. I'm gonna date myself here, right?
So you are.
I remember.
You know, John remembers, the
No.
rest of you just read about it in class.
No.
So.
I want my Betamax back.
Ooh, all right, I like. So, let me see, let's go to the next slide, please. Am I going along okay? Is this a good pace? All right. So water. I will tell you that in the almost 5 years that I've been on the MID board, probably 90% of the work that I do has to do with water. Even though 90% or better of our revenue comes from electricity. Water is where all the work is, right? From the standpoint of electeds and politics and everything else, it's about the water here in California. And some of you may have seen this drawing before. about where our water comes from. And, once again, it's obviously a very basic illustration, but you can see that, starting up in Don Pedro in the reservoir with, the Tuolumne and coming in and feeding the reservoir, which our reservoir right now is one of the healthiest ones in the state. I wouldn't say it's the healthiest, but it's definitely like in the top 5. I mean, it's very healthy right now. Comes down into LaGrange, and then you've got the MID canals, as well as you see the split with TID, 2 different systems. We've got the Modesto Regional Water Treatment Plant, which has been, not only wonderful for the citizens of Modesto, but at the same time, it's been really good to help maintain the Modesto subbasin, because there isn't all the pumping that used to go on back in the day. It's probably healthier for everybody too, without having to use all the wells. It seems like as technology evolves, we find more stuff at the bottom of the wells. Have you noticed that? Right, and it just, we didn't used to be able to test as well for things like arsenic and some of the other things. So I don't know if there was ever really more arsenic in the water, it's just we couldn't detect it. Once we detected it, we had to do something about it. So anyway, having Tuolumne River water treated is, a lot of people even argue you almost don't have to treat the Tuolumne River water at all. It's so clean and wonderful. Let me see here. So let me see. We're still obviously relying on our historic water rights. MID and TID have something called senior water rights, which is what we fight so hard to protect here in this area. And so our water rights date back to the late 1880s. The districts divert most of the water we supply to customers from the Tuolumne, which is the largest of the 3 tributaries of the San Joaquin River. The Tuolumne originates high in the Sierra Nevada on Mount Lyell in Yosemite National Park. And as many folks know, that a lot of what fills that river is melting snow. And which is why every winter we are, keeping such a sharp eye on what's happening with upcoming storms. And you've seen the pray for rain. Well, I'm one of those people who likes to pray for snow, because the better snowpack that we have in the winter, the better chance we have of having full reservoirs the coming year. Unfortunately, because of a lack of foresight in our politicians, I'm going to editorialize again. We don't have enough reservoirs to store all of our water needs. As a matter of fact, it's been since the mid-1970s, I believe, since we've built any significant reservoir. And at the time, I think our population in the state was around 15 million back in the mid-70s, and now we're what, 34 million? So we still have a water infrastructure that's about half as good as it needs to be. As a matter of fact, one of the things that's very difficult to see. The last time we had a good water year or a great snowpack, I think was 2018. I believe, was it 2018? And there was so much snow melt that all of the conservation that Governor Brown asked us to do went right out to the ocean in about 15 minutes, I think it seemed like. As the snow was melting, we had no place to hold all that extra water. And so once again, one man's opinion, we need to build much more storage, whether it's above ground, below ground, however we do it. Well, it may get the news that there's a lot of people leaving California. There's not enough leaving to get us down to levels of the mid-1970s. So anyway, really important that we do that. So we've got a lot of challenges, as many of you know, with both the state and feds. We're trying to relicense our dam with FERC, the FERC agency. It's the Federal Electric, Regulatory Commission. Did I say that right?
Federal Energy, I believe.
Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. So we've been trying to get a FERC license from the feds for 12 or 13 years now. Something
It
like that.
expired in 2016 and I think we started in 2010.
So 2010, we've been fighting, all right, so about 12 years then that we've been trying, that we've been working on getting relicensed. We still don't have a license. And we hoped that during the last presidential administration, who will remain nameless for this conversation, that we were about as close as we could get to getting the FERC license renewed. It, kick the can, now we're here, we still don't have it, I don't think we're any closer than we were. We've got a lot of state issues as well, because they can take, in order for us to get a FERC license, the state is allowed to put something, I think they're called 401s, right? 401s on the back of our FERC
Conditions.
license,
They can put conditions on. our
conditions, right? So they can say, well, in order for you to get your federal license, these are the state requirements, and we're still fighting over that with them as well. And one piece of good news on here, we just last week on September 6th, we authorized the board for both TID and MID authorized our respective general managers to sign the MOU for a Tuolumne River voluntary agreement, which all that means at this point is that we are where we were in December of 2018. And there's no guarantee that that actually becomes an actual agreement going forward, but at least we're still at this table, and it's better to be at the table rather than just being in the courtroom. Because that really seems to be our only choice, rather than having the State Water Resources Control Board steal our water. Okay, next up here. Also related to water. we
Stu,
own and operate-
Let me ask you real quick on that, because we've been fighting with the State Water Control Board and the Sacramento for a long time on this. Even though we signed an MOU, I mean, what is the outlook with the agencies long term? Is it that, especially with, we're controlled by one party state, what's the outlook? Are we just kicking the can down the road?
No, we're cautiously optimistic. It is only an MOU. It's not a contract. It's not, declaration that this is going to happen. We've reached an understanding with the agencies under the governor, which is, it's a big step. And, but it still needs to get signed off by the State Water Board. So, and the details still need to be ironed out. So it's great we're at the table. It's great that we've reached an understanding and, again, cautiously optimistic, but with anything, it's devil's in the details.
Yeah, I think Governor Newsom wants to see this as a win and have this be settled. Wouldn't you say that's?
He should.
Well, of course he should, but I think
It's gonna show how much power he has with the State Water Board. He's appointed them. Let's see how much power he has.
yeah, so that's the thing. The State Water Resource Control Board is an independent board that is appointed by the governor or governors, right? There's some carryovers from Governor Brown.
But they've all been reappointed at this
Right.
point by,
At the discretion of, right, of the governor. And you would hope that he would have enough power to be able to lean on them enough to say, get this done. But ultimately, the way things work, as I understand it, you've got a lot of staffers that for the board that are young and very much environmentalists in many ways. And they tend to listen, the board members tend to lean on staff. I don't know why anybody would lean on staff, but
right?
right, and I'd say that just joking, Dana, I lean on her regularly. But so if your staff is telling you, you can't do this, you shouldn't do that, and you're a board member and you're relying on them. It's a crapshoot as to whether or not it's gonna get done. My opinion. I hope so, and we're gonna keep trying. We always want to be seen as being at the table. All the time. We did walk out, last year, right?
We didn't walk out.
We didn't.
We were
walk out.
uninvited.
We were uninvited, okay. Yes, we were uninvited. And so, but
Clarity.
we,
Just want to clarify.
well, that's why I rely on Dana. Straight. So. We move on here. One of the things that we work very hard with our partners on the river, the city and county of San Francisco, as well as TID, is we've spent millions of dollars of ratepayer money on science to try and understand what's the best solutions for the river environmentally, and especially having to do with salmon, right? And one of the things that came out of that is roughly 98% of the juvenile salmon that is in the Tuolumne, which were put there largely by the fisheries, because there's almost no natural fish in the Tuolumne anymore, salmon that is. They're generally from fisheries, is they're eaten by striped bass. Almost all of them as juveniles. So when the juvenile salmon are swimming downstream to head to the ocean, it's kind of think of the striped bass sitting there in wolf packs like U-boats in World War II, just waiting for them to come down the river and chew them up. And so that severely limits the amount of salmon that's in the river. So, so a lot of the objections that we get in the fight that we have with the State Water Board is over salmon and having sufficient flows for salmon. And they want as much as 40 to 50% additional flows, basically taking it from our farmers and the city of Modesto in order to benefit salmon. My personal opinion is it's about getting more water to the Delta so they can put the tunnel in and ship it south to LA. All right. And I don't believe it's nearly as much about the salmon as it is about water south, right?
Have some of these studies shown, my recollection is some of these studies have shown that you guys did that the increased water flows don't really help the salmon. I think the theory is you pump down more water and so there's more room for them to swim past the salmon.
And it
But
has to do-
that,
And it has to do with water temperature.
yeah,
Yeah.
No,
I was gonna
there's some
say
studies.
temperature too,
Yeah. that's
Additional
not
water.
true, right?
Is not helpful
Okay.
to the salmon. I think out of the study, I think there was like one.
Yeah.
One additional salmon.
Okay.
So it's, I'll say the bass fishermen have a really good lobbying effort against it and they fight it every step. But the main problem facing salmon is bass.
Which are non-native species.
Correct.
And a predator then.
Yeah,
Predator,
it is predatory. So, and I'm not against striped bass or striped bass fishing or any of that kind of stuff. It's just, you know, we spent what, about $25 million on science,
more, yeah.
with companies like Fish Bio and others, as well as some folks, I think at UC Davis, is that right, Dana? There's somebody is a real authority on these, on river
Yeah.
science up there, and but the state has its own version of science. And so they don't want to listen to ours because it doesn't support theirs, right? So anyway, and they probably say the same thing about us. So then we've got this thing that there's the Bay Delta Water Quality Control Plan, or the SCD. And that is what the State Water Board, that's where they're calling for 40% of unimpaired flow in the Tuolumne River. So these state proposed flows mark a dramatic increase of water currently released to the river for fish and wildlife, and the state's flow proposal would redirect water supplies away from our communities without any recognizable benefits to salmon or the rest of the Delta ecosystem. So that's a big part of what we're fighting the state with in court, that we're hoping the voluntary agreements will make that go away, or at least postpone it for a number of years. So I told you about the MOU. Is there anything else you want to add about that? The MOU, other than,
Yeah,
We're
again,
hoping for the
cautiously
best.
optimistic and, you know, we'll be at the table in the work groups and hope for a positive outcome.
sooner than later? Okay, and then groundwater, another thing you've probably seen in the news is something called Sigma, is how we pronounce it, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act that was signed by Governor Brown a number of years ago. And it's basically to reduce the amount of pumping of water out of the aquifers for agriculture. And that's up and down the state. That's not limited to our sub-basin. And by the way, the Modesto sub-basin is one of the healthiest in the entire state. In terms of, there's a lot of farmers that tell me when they go to drill a well, they don't have to go very far when they hit water. I mean, and you don't have to be just up against the river to be able to see that. So we've got a very healthy aquifer. So that was in 2014 that was signed by Governor Brown. So basically what we had to do, it as well as up and down the state, is form groundwater sustainability agencies or GSAs. And each GSA had to develop a groundwater sustainability plan. All right. And so each GSA has this, and ours has been submitted.
Correct.
Right, it's under review right now.
Correct.
And looking to be implemented, was it 2023? I think. Or
Well,
at least we're supposed to get it back by then.
I think
and vote on
DWR is like 18 months behind schedule, but sure.
But basically, that is what's going to dictate what especially farmers and communities are going to have to do up and down the state, especially in the valley, with how much water they're allowed to pump. And there's a number of places, especially in South Valley, as I understand it, that they pump so much out of the ground that the ground is actually subsiding. It actually sinks. You can see pictures out on the web where they have like a measuring stick of where the water used to be. Have you seen any of those before? If not, I encourage you to look into it. The level, just on flat ground, where the water level used to be, and the land itself, not just the water, but the land has sunk by that much. So they're trying to avoid that, which in principle, I totally get it, that we can't over pump and leave all kinds of communities without any water. I've seen a documentary not long ago where in certain small towns in South Valley, people have huge cisterns where the town comes in with a tanker truck and fills it up next to their house, and that's the water for their home. I mean, that's obviously none of us want things to get to that point, right? But I'm a balanced guy, and trying to figure out what that right balance is for each area of the state is going to be really important. Let me see. So one of the goals of Sigma is that each one of these basins throughout the state must achieve sustainability within 20 years of implementing their groundwater sustainability plan. And so this sustainability refers to the management and use of groundwater in a manner that can be sustained during the 40-year GSP planning and implementation process without causing undesirable results. I don't exactly know what would be considered an undesirable result. So our MID is in the Modesto subbasin, which is a part of the GSA for the Stanislaus and Tuolumne Rivers Groundwater Basin Association. So we've got 7 members of our GSA: the city of Modesto, Oakdale, Riverbank, Waterford, MID, OID, and also Stanislaus County. 3 of the 4 cities, Oakdale, Riverbank, and Waterford, rely solely on groundwater for their water resources. So the GSA submitted the sub-basin plan in January, in January of 2022, and is currently under review by the Department of Water Resources. There are monthly meetings that meet on Zoom, the second Wednesday of each month, and you can go to strgba.org for info. Okay, can we go to the next slide, please? How am I doing on time, by the way?
Got about 20 minutes.
Good
Remaining?
Lord.
Wow, I'm talking as fast as I can.
That's a lot.
Right? So, all right. What's ahead for MID? Well, we just finished these slides just came out, but we just finished up the budget workshops. We've also just commissioned a customer satisfaction survey, and we also have an outage management system coming up. So we began the 2023 budget workshops last Tuesday, and they're recorded. It's riveting television. You know, there's nothing like an MID budget workshop. You just can't miss it. Okay, so I like to be a little tongue in cheek. It's somewhat dry, right? So it's just kind of the way it is. And Jimmy, if you're watching this, you did the best you could. So final budget revisions and budget adoption by the board of directors will take place later this fall. All right. All right. So we just wrapped up our MID customer satisfaction survey for our residential and commercial customers. And we are, you know, I'm certainly hopeful that people are happy. I know that a lot of customers I've talked to recently, really, it's people I think feel somewhat spoiled by being in the MID service area. Especially in the city where you don't really think about water in MID, you think about electricity. I think we've made tremendous strides with our customer service, and people are getting things taken care of in a very timely fashion. I think once again, anyone that would be watching this, both of you, you might seriously consider, if you have an issue that involves MID, power especially, to call customer service or call your director. All right. And if you don't know, you can always call into MID or look on MID.org to find out who your elected director is, because we are, as I've been telling people lately, we are your advocates on the board. We're way more than just simply a director. It's advocacy in my mind, advocacy for the ratepayers. Okay. And so we should be getting results on that. So I'll look forward to seeing how that is and what kind of feedback we've gotten from our customers. So this fall, we're going to be implementing a new electric outage management system. It will allow our customers to check for power outages online at their convenience and receive text messages from MID. That is a big deal. And I know that we may be a little late to the game on this, but I'm just excited that we'll be able to have this. And so there will be more information coming out on that. So as we would say a long time ago on television, stay tuned, right? There's more coming. And I don't know if I have much else really. Can you go to the next slide?
That was it.
Questions. Ta-da! All right. Does anybody have any questions for me before the hook comes out? Anybody online have any questions?
Good presentation, Stu. Thank you.
I have a couple questions, Stu, if you're.
Chris?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. How much clean energy infrastructure does MID currently own, and how close are we to state goals?
Well, we are co-owners at Don Pedro Dam, right, the hydro, and of which we get about 7% of our portfolio power from the dam. Other than that, Dana, I'm not sure we own much of anything. Infrastructure-wise, it's renewable. We pretty much buy it with long-term contracts.
We have the solar filled out off of
Stewart Road? out there?
now Oakdale and Patterson,
Okay, do you know?
right? No, McHenry and Patterson.
Yeah, right, 108.
Yeah, 108. So we have that. And we, per Martin, we are good on our power mix, I believe, through 2026. And we're looking at new contracts for beyond that.
Other renewable power sources. So Chris, a decision was made a long time ago to, rather than to invest in permanent infrastructure for renewables, to basically buy long-term contracts with others that have done that. So that allows us to remain more nimble in terms of how we spend ratepayer money. And you know, because we may just stay with the contract for so many years, and then because technologies have evolved, we're not stuck with that anymore. We can go buy it from somebody else. And of course, I would, and I realize I may be a minority in this, I would love to see us invest in nuclear and to be able to buy, even if we didn't own it, that we could buy power from nuclear facilities. Because it doesn't get much cleaner than that. Did I answer?
So yeah, that helps. But we are buying a $40 million jet engine.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we had to do that to keep what we have going.
Gotcha. I just have just a couple other questions. What's MID's stance on the solar tax?
On the what?
The solar tax that they're looking at passing in NEM 3.0.
You know, we have not discussed it as a board yet. So I'm not, and I haven't heard from staff on that at this point, Chris, what the feeling is there. So I don't have a good answer for you. And I'd rather-
Thank you so much.
All right, you bet. Anybody else online have a question?
Stu, yeah, I actually, something else came into my mind. Has MID looked at doing a community solar system where you build the solar and then allow new residential home builders, which are the folks I represent, to hook into your system and use that as credit so that they don't have to put solar on rooftops?
No, but I'm intrigued with the idea.
It was something written into the law that we advocated for, that if they're going to mandate solar on every rooftop, to allow a couple different in lieu means of achieving that. And one of them is if the local electricity provider has built a community solar system and allowed the home builder to buy into it, that would exempt them from putting the solar on the rooftops.
Once again, I would certainly like to take that to staff and have them research that and see if that's something that pencils out. I mean, everything that we do, John, we work really hard to make sure that we stretch ratepayer money as far as we can. And the concern with investing in technology is technology continues to change. And then would we be stuck with something when there's something new that just came out? As a matter of fact, for instance, in IT, we had a presentation just this week about, because we've been having challenges in sourcing high-tech employees for cybersecurity purposes, things of that nature. It's kind of forced our IT manager, Bruce, to go and look outside. And we've ended up, we just approved this week, in fact, a contract where it allows him to go out and source it through a company that's all they do, is network services with specialties in cybersecurity. The beauty of that, while you'd love to have employees inside, it'll save us just in this year $140,000 from having employees at MID fully burdened with all the benefits and all that sort of thing. The beauty is when you outsource like that, I know that's been a dirty word. I come from the software industry, so believe me, I understand about outsourcing being a dirty word. But sometimes if you can't find what you need, you still got to have you still have the need, even if you can't find it. So you got to do something to be able to bring that talent to bear. In this case at MID, we've got to make sure that our infrastructure is always top notch and we're not going to have any issues, especially with somebody trying to hack in to our grid and make a mess of things. And so we ended up going outside, and it may end up being that it stays as an outside service if we can't get the people.
Hey, John, I'll ask a couple of our department managers about the community solar system. I myself have not heard anything in any of their presentations or any staff meetings, but I'll definitely inquire and get back to you with the other questions that you've asked.
Yeah, I believe SMUD is the only one so far who has done it. But it kind of goes hand in hand with the notion that, and again, this is my understanding, is that solar on residential rooftops offers no credit to the local electricity provider as renewable. And editorializing, part of that was the labor unions didn't want non-labor unions to be able to install solar and have it credited as renewable. And so when you do a residential solar rooftop, it's generally non-union. When you do community solar, it generally is union. And that's why you don't get credit for it.
Interesting. Well, it's worth looking into. I'm glad you brought that up, John. Appreciate it. Any other questions? I see Donna on there. David has been on. David, do you have any questions, or Donna? Jenny? Nick, I see you're on there. Okay,
All right, well, thank you, Stu.
all right, thank you.
This is one of those things, as we mentioned a little bit, I think you might have referred to it, but MID board meetings are not popular. I mean, they're not flocked with people and.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And
Not for the faint of heart.
yeah. And I think electric ratepayers, as you said, don't really understand MID, how it works, unless you're a farmer or water's important. I think a lot of them assume it's just like PG&E and they don't realize like how local it is and that these things matter.
Well, and when you have cities like Riverbank where both PG&E and MID are providers, people get confused.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I know who I pay my bills to, but some people just don't follow it that closely.
Yeah. All right, great. So real quick, Donna, if you'd like to introduce yourself and if you'd like to report anything.
Hello, I'm sorry I was late to the meeting. This is Donna Linder, County Clerk, Recorder, Registrar of Voters. Thank you so much, Mr. Gilman. That was as a Modesto resident, that was very educational. But as far as my office goes, ballots have been mailed. The November election's coming soon. So ballots have been mailed to our overseas voters and our military. And we're prepping to get our ballots out for our local residents here in Stanislaus County. Code says they have to be mailed by 29 days prior to the election, which would be October 10th, and that happens to be a mail holiday. So those will be dropping in the mail on the 7th and 8th of October. So start watching for your ballots in the next couple weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. And then Nick, do you have anything to report for the county or for your supervisor?
No, not much. Great presentation, Director Gilman. It was very informative. Sorry again, I was late, but the one thing I would want to say is the Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors is having a night meeting on the 20th, so that this upcoming Tuesday, and it's going to be discussing where the $50 million of ARPA money will be going towards infrastructure and certain projects. So it should be a good meeting, yeah, so if you guys can make it either in person or online, it should be very informative, should be good. And these are projects that we're going to be touching locally, and it's all infrastructure related. So thank you again. That's all I have.
Any electric vehicle infrastructure? I think that.
All right, well, once again, I'll just, okay, go ahead, Trish.
So I have to plug that on September 28th, we are holding our candidate forum in partnership with Opportunity Stanislaus. You do need to register. We ask you to register, even if you're coming for the program only. That part we will start letting you in about 10 to 8. If you would like to register and pay for a breakfast to participate in the networking breakfast portion, you absolutely need to register. So we can receive you a seat, and look forward to seeing you. We have District 5 City Council, State Assembly, and State Senate races. So there will be 6 people being interviewed.
And it's
Question.
hosted at the DoubleTree.
How come no forum for MID candidates? Just had a question.
We are doing those individually.
Oh,
actually. They're
Okay,
in the process as we speak. There
I just have a vested interest.
We chose to do those individual with an hour session one-on-one.
Okay. Are they gonna be recorded or how, is it just for the chamber board? Gotcha.
Very private and exclusive, Dana.
It's the only race that we are doing, in-person interviews on, actually. We did our standard written interviews to all, I think it's running it all on.
That'll be in the magazine.
And the
I
chamber
was
will
just
be.
gonna ask if it's gonna be in the,
So one
progress.
question and response from every person who chose to participate will be in Progress Magazine, and that will be hitting mailboxes also around the 10th of October, which is very intentful on our part. And that first week in October, we will make announcements by day as to which race we have put up on our website with all responses to all questions, all unedited. So exactly how it says is how it will be on our website. We just can't fit all of that in the magazine. So we select one question.
people get wordy. Okay, perfect.
Some, not all.
Just a couple.
Yeah.
That's all I have done.
Okay, and then finally, just again, October 21st, again, Friday, 11:30, we have our speaker, Rosa Park, Executive Director of StanCog, and that will be an update on just Measure L projects and what's going on, so.